Hello, I'm Tina Wells from livingdeliciousnutrish.com. Welcome back to my kitchen. Today is week 3 of my chicken Greek-inspired dishes called the Koutala, Volume 1. And as you may know, there's a free download on my website. If you just go to livingdeliciousnutrish.com, you can just sign up for my newsletter and get the free download. This is week 3 of the 5 chicken dishes that I'm going to show you. Today I skipped ahead one recipe because I thought it would be fun to show you this really super simple dish. It's very similar to the technique that I used last week for the chicken, because rather than pounding and spending a lot of time doing that, we're just going to slice through the center and make 2 thin fillets. So I already have that here. You can see I just went through it horizontally and created 2 very thin pieces. And I'll show you how to do that. And while I am showing you that, I'm going to get my pan heated up here on my burner. So this is just a simple boneless, skinless chicken breast. You know, we try to find ways to add flavor and pack in some nutrients however we can. I'm just sort of taking off a little bit of the fat and things that I'm finding here along the edges. I get all of my meats from Butcher Box. You've probably heard me talk about Butcher Box. There's a link on my website if you're interested in checking it out. Just getting rid of that one little kind of tough piece there. And this is the really easy way to do this, okay? You just put your chicken flat and you put your hand on top and you hold your knife horizontal to your cutting board. So to get my fingers down, you know, low enough, I've got them off the edge of the cutting board. I'm not up here trying to do it at an angle. And I'm just going to do a very gentle, from the thickest to the thinnest point, gentle sawing motion. And that just goes very slowly, keeping the knife parallel to the cutting board. And as you get to the thinner part, you know, make sure that you're still in about halfway through the thickness. And it takes practice. You're not always going to get it perfect every time, but that's pretty close. I'm happy with that. And you don't have to pound it this way. It's not exactly still the same thickness all the way through, but it will cook a lot faster. And it tastes a lot meatier than when you pound the heck out of it. This is essentially chicken piccata. I call it lemon chicken with capers and caper leaves. And the reason that this recipe is so unique is because of these caper leaves from Santorini. Santorini Island in Greece is famous for these caper leaves. They're in everything on every menu pretty much that you eat in Santorini. They're delicious in a salad. You're probably not going to find these at the grocery store, but you can certainly get them online. You can leave them out if you decide you don't want to, you know, try it with these, but I highly recommend giving these a try because they are so delicious. So to this preheated pan, I'm going to add about a tablespoon or 2 of some olive oil. And I can see that's getting hot right away, so I'm just going to turn that down a notch or 2. Who's with me today? I see Paige is here. That means you're in the airport in Phoenix somewhere, I would imagine. This is a half a cup of tapioca flour. We're doing this grain-free. And you'll see what a crispy, delicious, light coating the tapioca flour gives to the chicken. And you may never use the, you know, all-purpose flour again. A little bit of fresh ground pepper and some pink Himalayan sea salt. I always recommend using a salt that's natural, like a sea salt or a Himalayan salt. I'm just shaking that around a little bit, and I'm going to dredge these chicken pieces right into that tapioca flour. Tapioca flour has a tendency to get a little gummy, so you want to make sure that you've completely dried off the chicken. I just patted it dry with paper towels before I cut it in half. And this is nice and coated now. Just going to go straight into the oil. And these are going to be done in about 5 minutes. Turn that back up. You can hear it sizzling right away. You want it to sizzle. And the same thing with the second piece. Because the tapioca has a tendency to get a little gummy, I try not to let these touch so that they don't stick together. And I'll get this out of the way and I'll be right back. I always recommend also starting on a higher temperature heat and then reducing rather than starting too low and it getting not hot enough. You want that instant sear so you seal in all the juices anytime you're cooking any kind of meat. So along with this, we're gonna make a nice sauce, and the key to this sauce is an emulsification. We're gonna emulsify some ghee. I just took some ghee, which is clarified butter. It's the only dairy that we eat when we're paleo. And I put it in the freezer. So I'm just gonna cut it into some chunks. You can do this chilled or frozen. If you already keep your ghee in the refrigerator, it works fine. I like it to be super, super cold. So when it hits that heat of the pan, it's definitely going to hold its own and not melt immediately. An emulsion is essentially mixing oil and water. So you're mixing a fat into water or a liquid and suspending those molecules together to make a thick sauce. I'm just gonna set that aside. And I've got 2 cloves of fresh garlic minced, a little bit of chicken bone broth, water, as I said, about 1/2 cup, and then a lemon, which I will use to squeeze into the sauce after we add the garlic. I'm not gonna use the zest this time, but if you like it super lemony, feel free to do that as well. If anyone has any questions along the way, or if you've already downloaded the recipes and you like to cook along, feel free to ask. I've got my monitor going over here so I can keep an eye on any questions. And thanks again to everyone for joining me. It's almost a year that I started Living Delish and Nutrish, and it's been a very exciting journey for me. I've really enjoyed building my little community here of Paleo and Whole30 people who are looking to build healthier habits and just try and eat a little healthier, build some nutrients into our meals, and we just feel so good when we eat like this. And sure, it's okay to, you know, have some ice cream or some pasta once in a while too. If you can do that, go for it. So these are just getting a little toasty on the one side. So I'm going to turn it over. You can see how it looks. And I'll turn the other one. Just a nice light golden, and you can see how crispy it's getting. So I'm gonna let that go, and I'm gonna talk a little bit more about these caper leaves. These are the caper leaves. They're very thin, they're very tender, and they're packed in a brine, which is essentially salt water. And they stick together a little bit. They have a really briny and tart flavor, which is just delicious with tomatoes or a little feta cheese if you can tolerate feta. I do like my feta. And I'm just gonna chiffonade these. So I'm gonna roll the leaves that I stacked up into a tight roll, just like that, like a little cigar. And then I'm going to go through them in thin strips, thin slices. Now, when you're slicing anything, you wanna hold what you're slicing with your thumb in the back as support and your fingers with the knuckles forward and the fingertips back, okay? That way you're never gonna take off your fingertip. You never wanna do this with your fingers out. So, and I also kind of like to lead with my middle knuckle forward. And then with every slice you make, you gently slide your fingers back and back and back in equal distances, and that's how you get equal slices. So I'm gonna do that now. Practice slowly, and then you can work up the speed. I can do it without looking, but I don't recommend that. So now you can see I've just chiffonaded these into nice little strips. You can do this with fresh basil, with other herbs or leaves that have big, you know, big leaves or good sized leaves. It's just a nice way to add some flavor and some punch without being without being really complicated. And I'm just kind of breaking these apart a little bit. I just love the flavor of these. If you love capers, you'll love caper leaves. So this chicken's looking pretty good. I'm just gonna take it out of the pan and make the sauce. You can see how nice and crispy it's gotten on both sides. You only need about 4 to 5 minutes on each side. So now to make the sauce, we're going to start with the chicken stock, about 1/2 cup, and you can see all the nice little brown bits on the bottom of this pan. What we're doing with the chicken stock is called deglazing. You want the temperature to be really high. You want to hear that sizzle. And then I'm just going to use a spatula to lift up all of those little brown bits, and they add so much flavor to the sauce. This is a classic French technique. It's called deglazing, as I said. And you're just scraping up all of those brown bits, and the sauce, the chicken stock, is going to reduce into a sauce. And you can see it just evaporates right away. And the steam is what's lifting all of those little bits up off the bottom of the pan. And it makes the pan so much easier to clean. You're making an excellent sauce, and you have a virtually clean pan when you're done. Look at the bottom of that pan, and this isn't even a nonstick pan. You can cook with nonstick, trust me, you don't need those chemicals. I have one brand of pan that I like a lot that sells a non-toxic nonstick, and that's the only brand I'll use when it comes to nonstick. So now next, I'm gonna cut this lemon in half real quick. So I have it ready. I'm gonna add the garlic. And we don't really want this to toast or get really brown. We're just adding it for the flavor. Stirring that in real quick. And now this is the technique for the sauce. I'm adding the water. And then I'm throwing in all this ghee right away. Just taking it right off of that paper and stir it briskly, brisk with the whisk. And I'm even gonna turn this up slightly higher because I want you to see how the oil and water emulsify and come together. And then as this heats up, it will reduce and become a nice sauce. And you can do two things with this. You can put the chicken back into it and let it cook a little longer. That does take away some of the crispiness, but it helps the sauce to kind of soak into that nice crispiness on the outside with the coating that we added. And you can see how this is coming together right away. And I'm just gonna grab a spoon and throw in my capers. These caper jars, the whole spoon never fits, so I use the handle. And I'm just gonna do about a tablespoon or 2 of capers. If you like more capers, add more capers. If you don't have the caper leaves, then go ahead and add a few extra capers. But I'm also going to throw in some of the leaves now. And I'm going back to whisking again. And then I'll use the rest of the caper leaves for the top. And finally, the lemon. I like to add the lemon towards the end so it doesn't get a really cooked flavor. Just squeezing in half of the lemon. But use the full lemon for the full recipe. Since I'm only doing about 1 pound of chicken and the recipe calls for 2 pounds, I'm only doing half. This actually reheats really well too. So I'm just gonna let that reduce a little bit. And again, you know, when you cut the chicken in half like this, it really helps with the cooking speed and time. If you have chicken already defrosted or ready to go from the grocery store, then just try this method and see if you like it better than, I think pounding gets a little messy. It does serve a purpose, but you know, you have to have plastic or the paper and the cutting board and the hammer. It's just a lot of cleanup. And this is a really quick way to do it on a weeknight when you come home from work late and you're out of time, because we still want to eat healthy. And I'm doing this live. As you can see, I measured out a few things before I came on, so there's not a lot of prep. I'm just going to taste the sauce for seasoning. Very lemony, delicious, needs just a little salt. And I'll show you what it's like to just add that chicken back in. If you prefer to do that method, we can do both. So I just have this one piece that I'll put back in. And you can see the juices are clear. So this chicken's done. It took no time to cook. I'm just going to turn it in the sauce so that that coating can absorb a little bit more of the flavor. And I actually like to serve this in a wide-brimmed bowl because I think it's really fun to have that sauce to sort of soak up, either with some chicken, cauliflower rice with chicken stock, and some fresh herbs. Move this over so you can see the chicken in the dish there with this nice wide-brimmed bowl. And it's reduced, still a little liquid, but I like it that way. Just gonna pour that over the top, just like that. Pull out a few more of these capers, and you can see the garlic is very light colored. It's cooked, but it's not browned. That keeps it very mild. A little more of the caper leaves on top. And that's how I do chicken with capers and caper leaves. The lemon makes it bright. It's a delicious summer dish, but you can make it year round. So if you give this a try, let me know. Tag me here on Instagram. Again, feel free to go to my website and sign up for my newsletter so you get the free download with all 5 chicken recipes that are all Greek-inspired dishes. Some are new and some are family recipes that I'm sharing. And come back next week here on Instagram, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And I look forward to seeing you then. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me.